Welcome to this advanced mandolin lesson where in the next 10 minutes we're going to do some cross-picking and hopefully we'll have something that sounds a bit like this. That melody, if you don't already know it, is the Wildwood Flower, a beautiful old-time tune made famous by the Carter family. And if you don't know it, I do suggest you just quickly pause this video and look at the beginner and intermediate lesson that's linked to this one. There's a link below because we just discussed the melody in that one. So just you can swat up on what the actual melody is. Crosspicking goes under many names on the mandolin, and I once heard, I think Chris Thiele was the first person I heard describe it perfectly, which is what crosspicking is. All we want to do is we want to make the mandolin sound like it has more strings than it actually does. So any kind of technique that does that, that kind of tricks the ear into thinking, oh, they've got a lot of strings going on, that's crosspicking for me. There is a crosspicking with a capital C, made famous by Jesse McReynolds, where there was very specific picking patterns that break away from the down on the beat, up off the beat. So there's lots of sort of down, down, up, or down, up, you know, depending on what you do, movement on strings. I'm not going to do any of that because I don't know how to do it. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of specific learning of them. So either look up Jesse McReynolds, or Tristan Scroggins has also done a lot on proper Jesse McReynolds crosspicking. We're going to do crosspicking with a lowercase c, which is a big umbrella term for what I described a few minutes ago, which is where any technique we do which makes the mandolin sound like it's got more strings than it actually does. So now that's the legal bit out of the way, we can dive in and look at our first way of crosspicking, which to me is just droning notes. And before we start, everything I talk about, so all the tab, is free to download. There's a little PDF linked in the description, so make sure you have that in front of you because this would be quite a tricky sequence of tunes to learn by ear. Very impressive if you can. So the first melody, it's more of a drone than a crosspick, but to me, it's still crosspicking. So the first thing I do with the Wildwood Flower in C, instead of having the melody down here, I want it all on one string. Apart from that last note, there's no way of avoiding it. So as soon as you got it on one string, as soon as that is all on one string, that is when we can start crosspicking. That's one of the most important things. If you can, obviously, there's a lot of melodies where that doesn't apply, but life gets a lot easier if your melody's on one string and then you've got the other strings just dedicated to crosspicking. So the first one is to create a drone. There's a few ways we could create a drone. And to create a drone, we generally want a note of the chord. So this is where, know your arpeggios, advanced players. So if we're in C, it's a C chord, we can have a C drone, which would be up here. That's quite tricky. We could have a G drone, which we have a handy open string here. So if you notice, I've made the melody slightly more syncopated, moved some of the notes just slightly off the beat. There, there, there. Just creates a nicer little crosspick sound on the mandolin. So that's our first way of doing it. Just a simple drone note, just keeping the G going. And I've kept the C at the end of the phrase. I've kept what I did in the beginner and intermediate lesson, which is essentially just like a chord rhythm, because I like how it sounds. So let's try that together, just moving up and down the neck on the melody and droning that G. After two. 1, 2. Let's do it again. Then the B part, we can switch it. So that's a drone where the drone's lower than the melody. And the B part, we can change it a little bit, actually. So the melody, again, I want it all on the A string this time. which leaves me the E string, because we've got a C chord, so an E is one of the C chord, to drone the open E. So, again, just droning that E, and then it changes on the F, because an E is no longer in an F chord. We don't want an F major 7. This is not a jazz tune, this is an old time tune. So the drone now changes to the drone in an F up there on the high E string. So the whole phrase. And then back to the E for that last phrase. And then let's just try that B part of the chorus together. Just the top line after 2. 1, 2. So there we go, that's the chorus. So that is cross-picking to me. Never be afraid to be bold with your cross-picking and just have a drone. We're going to look at like true cross-picking in a minute. But if you struggle with that, just sort of creating, it's almost constant eighth notes is one of the big things, and some of those eighth notes ring on. So ideally open strings, but where possible. But as long as the note's ringing out, it creates the illusion that we've got more going on than we actually do, which is what we're trying to do with cross-picking. So I'll stick the metronome on. Let's play that 1 to 3 before we move on to the harder melody. So here we go. 1, 2. With cross-picking, you generally want like a 3-string pattern. So you want your melody on 1 string, and then you want 2 strings either below it or above it to create your cross-pick sound. So if I was just to play the opening phrase of what I've written, so this is what we're going for. So if we take our melody note, there's our melody note, it's a G, we've got a C chord at the moment, so we want other notes from the C chord, generally, sort of 90% of the time you want arpeggio notes. So I've got a C there, and an E there, so I've got the full C chord. And I'm going to keep those as long as I can while the melody moves. But when my melody goes up here, I've got to go somewhere, so my hand has to go with it. So I just have another E. So the first bar. With all of this, try and do it alternate pick strokes. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Constant. You watch my hand, it's still just doing that. Just going, tapping out the beat. And then the bar 2, again, I'm just making a C chord. So I'm keeping the C and the E ringing out above it. Bar 3, we move to a G, so I move to notes of the G chord. So I've got my melody there. And I'm adding in of the G chord. So let's just try that opening phrase round a few times. I'll start slow and we'll wind it up. So after 2. And bear in mind, if you can, you got the first 2 pickup notes, index and middle, and then if you can use your middle to land on 5 as well, that will help you out. Here we go. 1, 2. Let's try it again. And again, don't just the top line. One more again, the top line. The second line is a slight variation. So I couldn't decide which one I prefer. Once you're up here, you can stay down here and your melody note goes to there, the 9th fret. And then you have to get 10 and 10. Da, da, da. And then a slightly different G shape when your melody becomes the 7th fret of the D string, so your cross picks become 5 and 5. So if I just try that second line through a few times, just like we did earlier, just so you can sort of hear how it sounds. Here we go. 1, 2. And again. And again. One more time. When we get to the chorus, again, so the melody is now quite high. So we want to keep that principle of 3 strings ringing out. So if the melody's on the A string, we're going to need the D and the G string now to do our cross picking. So if I play what I've written. So again, melody's in E, so I've got a G and then another G. Just both of those are in the C chord. And then the second bar when the melody's there, I've got an E and a G. Then it changes to F. So I put an F chord underneath the melody. So let's just try that round a few times. And just for reference, I'm doing a lot of work with my first finger. My first finger's involved in every double stop. So after 2, 1, 2. And again, 1, 2. So all that's left to do now is have a play through it with a metronome. You may be struggling with this. Again, feel free to edit bits to suit you. I think I will play it as written on the tab. So I'll do the first line where it comes down here, and then the second line where it stays there. Just so you can hear the difference, not because I prefer one or the other. I think the more and more I play it, I prefer the first version, but hey, at least give you the option. 1, 2. So there you have it, a crosspick version of the Wildwood flower. As I've mentioned many times in this video, there's 100 different ways you could arrange that. So I want you to take the principles away of you want a melody on one string and then you want 2 other strings to create the crosspick sound. Generally, you will want to add notes of the chord, so you know your arpeggios, but there's a lot of give and take in that. And don't be afraid to do your own version of it. Cross-picking with a lowercase is a very wide field. You're just trying to trick the ear into thinking there's more strings than there actually is. I hope you've enjoyed the lesson. My name's Mando Mike. I do these every month. Please hit subscribe while you're here, and we'll see you next month.